All right, President Paul Kagame there of Rwanda talking about their choice to go with Tanzania on the rail link as opposed to SGR with Kenya. And of course, on our Twitter poll question, you can head over to KTN News to participate. We're asking you whether you think Kenya's clout is diminishing in the East Africa community. I want to read some of your views tonight. Peter Mukunzi, you say Kenya's economy is under siege due to corruption. SGR cost in TZ is a third Kenyan SGR. Mrs. S, you say, why did other Cadbury's and other companies relocate to Egypt? So you're questioning the environment for business here. Sami Mukolwe, you only associate with Kenya at your own risk. That is the plain truth that we're coming to learn. Solomon Ambuku, we're regions, Kaklord being played on a front like Isao. We sell Migingo for buckets of milk, still lose out. Obar Mark, you say Kenyan billionaires rushed and bought cheap land in Lamu project so they'd sell it so expensively, while TZ was honest. And I'll pick that note and point with one of my guests tonight, Daktari. What do you think about that? Because we saw a lot of positioning and realigning in as far as people who were looking to be able to, as he said, get this land, and when it comes to compensation, make a killing. Are these some of the things that are making us lose business?
The truth is, Kenya is an aggressive country, and the people are very aggressive. People sense business opportunities. It's too capitalist. When you sense a business opportunity, you think about you, not the country first. So you think that there's going to be something there, you go, you buy the land very quickly before the people know what is happening. Then all of a sudden you hike the price, and that increases the cost of doing business. So like you're saying, of course, those are some of the things which are contributing to the unnecessarily high cost of doing business in Kenya.
And why then not do a counterplay on such individuals who then go and are speculating and will buy this land to sell it off, raising the cost, and change the route as we've seen many others propose. So for example, in the Lapset, as opposed to the Northern Corridor, there are those who've given other suggestions where you go from Lamu to Thika all the way down to Nanyuki.
You see, you cannot really have your cake and keep it at the same time. Kenya agrees to be a free economy, free market economy to a large extent, capitalist economy. So you cannot control people's decision as long as you're not breaking the law. There's nothing wrong with me going to buy land if I have the money. And there's nothing wrong with me selling it at the price I want. If you can't buy it, don't buy it.
Yes.
So really, that's the situation here.
In
so
as far
Kenyans are aggressive.
In as far as the pipeline is concerned with Uganda, there are those who criticize the EAC Secretariat, accusing them of failure to ensure a smooth process to broker a deal. What are your thoughts on that?
Let me say this. When we come to the EAC Secretariat, it may have very little to do with doing the brokerage. It has everything to do with facilitating what the partner state agree. And when we come to the economics of Uganda, preferring Tanga as opposed to Lamu, when they did their costing, it came to 350 billion Kenya shillings from Uganda to Tanga. But from Uganda to Lamu, it went to 420 billion. So obviously, reading from those figures, you see that it will be costly in Kenya. And why is it expensive in Kenya? Because of some of the things that that viewers has mentioning, where we inflate the price of the land, because the land system in Uganda is different from ours. Government in Uganda will control the pricing. In Tanzania, land belongs to the government. In Kenya, land belongs to individuals, and therefore, as Daktari says, the Kenyans are ready to price the way they want. So those, and then corruption, of course, where now they charge, and I can tell you for free, because I've been listening what Uganda and Tanzania are saying, that they will not assist or participate in trying to encourage Kenyan corrupt system in terms of encouraging this. So what we are saying is that it is true. Indeed, for us, even those who are evaluating this, and even the bureaucrats, they must be very careful. They must actually be careful so that they don't price some of these things and you lock out investors. And this is a big threat.
Right. Is Tanzania a country looking to dislodge Kenya, as many have seen Kenya to be the dominant powerhouse in East Africa? Is it focused on that particular target, do you think?
Well, I do not agree that Kenya has been an economic power. Kenya has been a paper tiger that scared people and covered its nakedness. Now the nakedness is coming out. Let me take you to 2007. In 2007, the post-election violence in this country, Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, almost collapsed because the railway line had been uprooted at Kibera. The SGR is passing still at Kibera. How are those countries safe and sure that that railway line is not going to be uprooted come next year, 2017? You've seen the type of politics that we are playing, grandstanding. Nobody wants to budge. Definitely, we are almost being sure that in 2017, that SGR will not, the goods to Uganda and all these countries are not very, very assured to reach their market. So those countries have made a strategic decision that to avoid a repeat of 2007, when their economy is almost collapsed,
Yes.
let them go to a country that its politics have certainty. There is no scare. Two, we made a decision to go to Somali. That decision has made the northern part of this country quite volatile. And therefore, Uganda is saying their pipeline cannot pass through that area because of that type of insecurity. So there is one fear, though it's not founded on any economic basis, there is a potential fear that the terrorists might make the northern part a danger zone. Two, there is also fear that the northern corridor, that is because of the post-election violence and because of the political grandstanding that we have now, there might be insecurity. Based on those two, plus the type of corruption, the Kenyans have spoken. Everybody has heard them. They are saying Kenya corruption is at the top. We cannot justify any economic understanding that Lamu land was purely, just the other day, 1,000 shillings, a whole 100 acres. Today you are being told it's $1 billion for an acre.
Yeah.
Is it justified? Is the valuation, even valuers cannot value that land? So
Okay.
the question of corruption in terms of cost of doing business in this country. Two, the question of politics in this country, we've never gotten it right. And unless we get our politics right, unless we tone our politics right, for the last 3 weeks, businesses have been incurring losses every Monday.
Okay.
I want
All right.
to, I want
Yeah.
there's something I want to clarify to my brother here, and
Yeah.
we must appreciate Kenyan private sector is very strong. And I think that is possibly why we came out of the post-election violence successfully. And of course, within 2 years or so, Kenya had taken off. That is not so in most of the partner states in the East African community. That again, we must not assume it will always be like that. The private sector may become impatient and ticked to an extent. But so when he says that Kenya is not an economic power and therefore is a paper, I don't agree with that. Kenya is indeed an economic power in this region. You look at the GDP of the country, 80 billion. Other countries, Uganda is 21 billion, Tanzania is 30 billion, Burundi is 2 billion, Rwanda is 10 billion. So you can see. So it's an economic
Yeah.
power, but we need to protect it.
So let me ask you this, because there are those who wonder when the voice of the
Yes.
East Africa community is expected to be loudest, it
Yes.
appears to be very careful and cautionary. Look, for instance, in a case of Burundi and the crisis that was ongoing.
Yes.
We saw the leaders come together and we didn't see any hard-hitting statements
Yes.
about put an end to this is what must happen. They were all playing very safe.
Yes.
So what then is the point many would ask of a community if
Yes.
you're just going to keep each other warm and not really call each other out when things are falling apart?
You know, geopolitics, very important in this particular case.
Yeah.
Why did we come together as a community, as partner states, to have a bigger market, to have 150 population thing and look at that? And therefore, if we then go to an extent of saying, of course, Burundi is doing this and therefore we must quickly expel them from the community, what are we doing? We are deregistering members and of course defeating the very purpose why we came together. What I'm saying is, of course, is every partner state, they have signed the treaty.
Even not getting them out of the community, at least speaking sternly against what's going on and against one of their own, their comrades.
Yeah, true. And again, you see, and that is for sure. And there's been a lot of politics around it and saying who is to caution Burundi, for example, because some of these parameters. But this is that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is that we must be very careful. And as a country, because I'm happy we are speaking from Kenya. What is our strategic interest in Burundi? Is it correcting them and telling them this and that? Look at who is the number one foreign direct investor in Burundi? It is Kenya. Look at the number of Kenyans working in Burundi. Look at those parameters and trying to balance them. with the saying and telling them now, you guys must make your things right. We balance and we do some quiet diplomacy. And if you look at the initiative that have been happening, there's been so many things, members of parliament from East Africa, members of parliament from the national parliament here, and even at the cabinet level, quietly doing some diplomacy to ensure that things normalize in Burundi for the Kenya's strategic interest in that country.
Okay, so we have the East African community, there is the Southern African Development Community, SADC, the Community Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA, ECOWAS as well, Economic Community for Western African States. So all of these regional blocks, and there were talks initiated, I think it was last year or the year before, about bringing them together. Is that what we need to have an African economic community as opposed to the different groupings?
You know, some of these groupings are really not very functional.
Yeah.
They're not, some of them were made for political reasons. Others, like for East African community, the EAC is the most ambitious and the one which has really made a bit of progress, but it's facing a lot of challenges. Like, for example, I think by now you are supposed to be having a monetary union since last year, right?
Yes.
Of course, we are very far from that, because even the macroeconomics, we are not anywhere, because in economics we talk about before you have a monetary union, you must have what you call convergence. Convergence in terms of inflation, in terms of so many economic parameters, employment and all that. But that is not happening. So looking at all these other blocks, for example, the truth is, we are not talking about a tripartite, isn't it?
Yes.
Integrating COMESA, SADC, and the ESC.
Yes.
A lot of talks is going ahead, but like we say, it's likely to take longer. The integration is likely to take longer, because if we're talking about integrating with other communities, and even us as Kenya, Uganda, Burundi, we are still not very trustworthy of each other. How then can we extend this regional integration with other blocks? It's a lot of talk, but the practicabilities are not adding up.
Okay.
I think for our benefit, so that they understand.
Yes.
The monetary union is the third pillar of the East African community integration. And it was signed in 2014. And then it gives a period of 10 years. So that then we have one currency. Why 10 years? To put in place what we are saying, infrastructure. To make sure that you harmonize policies and regulations like institutions, central bank, because once we have a monetary union, then it means we are going to have one central bank.
Yes.
We are going to have one public monetary policy and one, of course, fiscal policy. Now, for that to be done, it must take a bit of time. And that is now seen to be happening by 2022 or 23 to have a common currency. When we come to the issue of course, the other economic blocks, COMESA and all that, the reason why it was important to start thinking and bring them together is in the East African community, it was seen some partner states have double membership into other communities. Tanzania, they are members
the
of the
overlapping.
EAC, the overlapping
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And therefore they are members of the EAC and they are members of SADC.
Yeah.
And therefore Kenya is a member of EAC and a member of COMESA. Tanzania is not. Then we said, to avoid all these kind of overlaps and mistrust, we need to see whether SADC, COMESA, and EAC can start working together.
Right. You had something to say?
Yes, very well. First of all, I will completely not agree with my friend here when he says that Kenya is a serious powerhouse in terms of billions, in terms of GDP.
Yeah.
The question that is there, does it translate to money, to Wanjiku? Is a Kenyan who has nothing, is food on the table? The cost of living of this country has spiraled downwards. That tells you that the giant that is pretending to be the giant is not a giant. We should be measuring the cost of buying ugali. Today, almost the number of youths that are not employed is tremendous.
Yeah.
When you look at the number of blue chip companies giving indications that the profits are not going to be there.
Yeah.
They are making losses. That is a clear indication that we are now facing a meltdown in terms of that perception that we have always lived with, that we are a powerhouse. Lastly, let me bring out a comparative approach to this issue. Let us look at the European approach.
The Brexit?
True. Britain is on a referendum to exit from the European Union.
Right.
That union is similar to the East African community. Why? Because it is looking at its own interests.
Do you think Kenya should exit?
It is now the question of these other countries
Yeah.
who now have an alternative which was not there. When Tanzania was under Kikwete, they had no option other than to remain under the East African community. It is not the first time they've walked out. Now that they have another alternative, definitely they are now saying, as we'll go this side, is this likely to be the journey towards the death of the East African community?
And it has happened before.
This is the second time.
It will
And
be-
that's why I'm
This is-
saying,
you're sure
in
it's
my
gonna
own view, in my own view,
Okay.
the journey has started.
To the dissolution of EAC.
Kenya will be left alone.
Wow.
I don't think, it's all right, but I don't think what my brother is trying to pass to the public is correct. One, you must understand why you come together as a community. The economic bloc, the economic world order today is that you benefit more if you really are a bloc, economic bloc.
What if you're not benefiting?
And if you're not, no, that is now you have to see how then you're benefiting. And when you are saying, for example, people not benefiting, today you can go to Uganda using a mere ID without even using your passport. You can go to Rwanda without getting.
The question
getting
who
all the-
benefits? Does
there-
Uganda benefit?
And
Is the
therefore,
Kenyan who benefits?
And therefore, what is happening is that if then you have positioned yourself properly and you have the right skills as labor and services, you'll be able now to go and look for your job in Uganda.
Okay.
You go to work in Rwanda without a lot of problems.
So I have
in
3
the long
minutes,
run,
yes.
it's likely to happen.
All right. So I have 3 minutes. I want to give each of you a chance for your last word.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind all of the things we've discussed tonight, but most importantly, going forward, you
Yes.
see a dissolution already. But going forward for the EAC, what must Kenya do to make sure that she solidifies her place and has impact in the community?
From my very personal perspective and opinion is that Kenya is still strategically positioned, is still a economic powerhouse in the region. And for me, I think history will prove me right or wrong. I think it's a mistake that these other countries think that they can sideline Kenya. But history will prove me right or wrong.
Right.
It is for the interest of these countries to work with Kenya, much as it is our interest to work with them. So let's wait and see.
Let's wait and see.
Yeah.
I think my take is that we must appreciate when you look at the Kibaki administration, for example. You see, Kibaki administration had given a lot of strategic thinking
Right.
and positioning in the community, and therefore trying to, of course, make others understand Kenya is indeed an economic power. Of course, I believe it is. So I think what they need to do as a country today is that Kenya seems to be the fact that they are not getting their now. They must redefine their strategic interest. If you look at the Ministry of EAC, for example, in Kenya, it's now become a department within a bigger ministry, and therefore now losing focus. When you look at the Minister of EAC in Uganda, is a whole deputy prime minister, and therefore EAC as a ministry must be given a lot of prominence. By actually, it should be even anchored within the presidency, or even, for example, in the office of the deputy president, so that then it's given prominence. But then when it becomes a department, then it means we are not getting our strategy right. We seem to be even getting lost. We don't understand why in the first place we're in the community. Look at now the EAC ministry. Who
Right.
hears about it in Kenya? But during Kibaki time, you could hear and see what was happening.
Okay.
So we have everything. We have there's a lot of opportunity. Kenya, we must take advantage of this. We need to give prominence to the Ministry of EAC.
All right. Final word.
My final take is that Kenya needs to sit and reevaluate where the rains started hitting us. Let us not continue lying to each other that everything is in order. Actually, we will keep talking that everything is in order until we find that we have been left in isolation. Let us sit as a nation and correct what is wrong. 2, let us put economics first
Yes.
before politics. And if the politics of this nation deals with the economic gain,
Right.
a Kenyan Kolu Wanjiku will be happy. We do not expect anything less from that.
Okay.
We entered into a social contract with the government. We need to discuss how, because it is the imminent danger that we will be left alone, and that will be dangerous.
All right, so before I give the poll results tonight, we're asking whether you think Kenya is losing her economic clout in the East Africa community. Yes or no from each of you? Yes or no? Is she losing her economic clout?
No.
No.
Yes.
All right, and 75% of Kenyans agree with you. They say Kenya is losing her economic clout. 25% say no. That's the note in which you wind up the show tonight. Thank you so much for watching The Last Word. We'll continue to watch developments and keep you posted here on KTN News. Have a good night.